I've seen it around me so many times. An untimely death. This person had so much more to live for, so
Yeah.
much more to
Yeah.
do. And you think life is short. So, as they say, success is not like some point in the future, it's the entire journey along the way.
Yeah.
And, and I made a commitment. I said, I'm going to enjoy it. You never know when it's going to end. And at least if it ends sooner than later, you look back and you'll say, I had a good time doing it.
From Sixth Story, I'm your producer, Diana Hong, and you're listening to Rev Up Your Potential with Hilda again, the show where we talk with the entrepreneur next door about the stories behind their success and the lessons they've learned along the way. Today's guest has worked globally across several industries, including IT, logistics, virtual offices, legal services, finance and investment, and HR. He says he only does what he loves to do and lives with a simple rule: have fun and stay balanced. He is the founder of SkyTech, a success center for business owners and professionals, located in Richmond Hill, Ontario. In today's episode, he and Hilda talk about where he got his idea for SkyTech. He'll share the story of how he got defrauded for over $30,000, finding work-life balance, and discovering what's important to you, and so much more. So please enjoy our conversation with Mohammed Kermalli.
I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about your journey, and perhaps if you could start with where it began pre-entrepreneur life. What were you doing, and then how did that spur you to become the entrepreneur in those early days?
It was always a series of, number one, some very inspiring people around me. I've grown up and been around amazing, amazing people, still am. And I think that's probably the biggest piece of it, just the people who are around us. And aside from the inspiring moments, it was also those moments where I think that this, I have to give it due credit, is those disappointing moments, those fall down moments
Mhm.
where, life, some would say, felt unfair, or someone was being unfair or something like that. And we were being limited, or our boundaries were really, really being tested. We were very, very uncomfortable. It could have been something personal that happens. It could have been something that happened at the office while we were working for someone. And we just feel like, we're at a crossroad and we ask ourselves, am I going to settle for this? Or is there more to me than this? And whenever there's that feeling, and I'm just trying to recall, whenever that feeling, I had a lot of these feelings that there's got to be more to it than this. This can't be it. And then after that, it started getting fueled by this desire that, well, if I want to have a better outcome, something's got to change, and I can't keep doing it like this, because we keep running into those same moments over and over again. If anyone's worked anywhere for anyone, and that's not to say there's any issue working inside an organization and being a part of an organization. There's a lot of good in that for the things that we learn. But I kept feeling that I kept hitting a limit. And when I say I'm hitting a limit, it was not a limit that I imposed on myself. I was thinking, like, I want to go forward. I'm ready to do more. I did better than what, I got the due for.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, and I just got limited. And
And
I was
you
like,
and you had that so many times, is what you're saying, that you thought there was more to it than that.
absolutely. It could happen on a small level. Then they can happen on grander levels. Maybe a promotion you got passed up on, and nothing wrong with the other candidate who got the promotion, but there was only one,
Yeah, yeah,
role,
yeah.
and you didn't get it, or something like that. And you look at it going, I wanted to just sort of have a greater say in my own destiny.
Did you grow up with an entrepreneurial spirit or an
Absolutely,
exposure to entrepreneurism?
absolutely. I'd seen around me a lot of entrepreneur spirit. I come from an immigrant family,
Hmm.
and for a family that has moved across an ocean and taken that huge risk of going across an ocean, the entrepreneur spirit is exactly that. It's going out there into the unknown,
Yeah, yeah.
leaving behind a bunch of comforts and hoping for something better, knowing that there are risks that it may very well be worse. And my father made that move. And so there was a lot of the things that you see along the line when you do have that entrepreneur spirit, that uncertainty, the necessity to adapt, to pivot, to face volatility, the life of the entrepreneur. And but it was done on a personal level.
I have such admiration for the first person who came over. My father actually came over, and I have such respect for people because they come to a country they don't know, they may not even know the language, and on a hope and a prayer that things will be better, they come. And they are truly, as you say, the pioneers, the entrepreneur spirit. And I applaud all of those who've made that decision to come and to bring their families and to be that risk taker. So tell me about your first entrepreneur endeavor.
Well, I'd have to say the first one would be SkyTech. Before that, I did own a startup, a company, but that was really a spin-off that took place through some very fortunate circumstances. I was actually encouraged to start my own company by the last group of people I worked for. And it just so happened that it was part of a strategic move on their side in
Mhm.
terms of dealing with certain segments of the market. And so I happened to fall upon being in the right place, at the right time.
I'm
Um,
sure it's not happened to, because they obviously understood there was something in you that could make that happen, right?
you'd have to ask them that question. Uh, but I got to be honest, like, really, I just think that sometimes it happens and you hear these stories from people that,
Okay.
that just happened to be there and someone said, hey, how about you? You know? And I guess the part of that that maybe was, more than circumstantial was I had a choice. I could have said, no, I'd rather stay here in this comfort zone.
Yep.
And I
Yep.
looked at it and I thought, yeah, sure, why not? And, off we went. That's as quickly as it happened. It was fast. It was like, so, and yeah, sure, let's do it. And then after that, the building blocks. So that was a great experience. I learned a lot about, the financial aspects, balancing the P&L. It was starting up an IT company just before the Y2K bust. If those are around, would remember it. So it was a very challenging experience, and you learn those great life lessons from it, and it was very rewarding too at the same time. So it got me to certain milestones financially, but more than that, it really got me comfortable with the idea, right, of being out there. You're on your own. You don't have the shelter of a larger group behind you. You get to travel, meet people. You're now fully accountable for all of your actions. You get all the reward, but you take all the risk, and you gotta walk through that to feel it. So that was a great experience. And then it led to SkyTech when I actually opened up a branch office. I had started this in another country in the U.S. and I opened up a branch office here in Canada in a place that was a shared service facility, virtual office, whatever you want to call
What year would that have been?
them. It's going back now to 2000 and around three ish.
Okay.
Yeah, early 2000s.
Was the concept of executive suites common at that point, or just very new in its evolution?
Yeah, that's a good point. It was new to me. When I thought about the concept, again, I stumbled on it. It was somebody else that I'd asked to help me find space. I would have to credit my brother with that at the time. He was in university or something, I forget. He said, yeah, he looked around and he found this place. And he said, yeah, go have a look. And when I saw the idea, I needed a receptionist to answer my phones and transfer it to me. I was used to having my own full-time receptionist. And anyone who has their own staff knows what the cost of having one full-time person, to answer your phones costs you and to help you with day-to-day admin functions. And when I saw that for a fraction of that cost of the person, I get the person and the office space and all of this included, it was a no-brainer. So it's like, there was not much to think about. So I just did it. What I found out after doing that was that there's more to it than just a space. Who are you around? Who are your neighbors? What sort of people are around here? And for me, as I said earlier on, the people around me have been impactful on me. So I connect with people around me. And when I found that the people around me weren't of the culture, right? The vibe just wasn't there. I thought I'd rather work alone than work around, in an environment that's not conducive. So that was the beginnings of saying, okay, well, what if I did this? How would I do this differently? How would I make it more client centric? How would I build a better culture? There were things that I wanted to to have as a service that I asked for that I couldn't get even if I was willing to pay. And I thought, okay, let's build something that's more than just the space. And back then, this is going back now almost 15 years, it was basically a hybrid landlord tenant model where you just came in and you pay your rent, you go to work, and nobody cares more than that. And yeah, so it's come a long way. And I wanted to have an environment where people were supportive of one another, which nowadays they call community, right? And so over the number of years, it's really evolved, and the landscape has really changed. Back then, there was this traditional view that you have to lease your own office. Everything's got to be your own, your own, your own. And as innovation picks up, and as the market starts to move very fast, we realize that what's really our own is the idea. What's really our own is the business. Everything else is a tool, is a facility. So your space, staff, everybody else, every other part of the business is there for the business. The actual big piece is the idea. So whichever way you get there. So there was this taboo for a while that you're not in your own space, and we went through a lot of effort to make sure that this space really felt like your space. So we made sure that we didn't throw our brand up everywhere and just self promote. We actually made it a habit of promoting our community members, and they really responded well to that. And then over time, being in a space like this really showed that you have thought about your scaling. And that's the big piece. It says when you're in a space like this that you're thinking flexible, you're thinking ability to scale. So you can go from one room to 5 rooms really quick. You can go from one person to 10 people to 20 really quick. And when you're ready for that, you can then go and grab some of these opportunities that come your way without having to worry about making the investment upfront for it.
Yeah, there's that flexibility. And I think too, the sense of community. A lot of people who are solopreneurs really sometimes don't feel connected to others. And when you have some others, as in your executive suites, a community, you do have a sense of belonging somewhere. You do have a sense of support. You mentioned earlier when we were talking before the interview started, you talked about what you call SkyTech Owners Network Group. Tell the group a little bit about that. What do you see? What is it? And what are the benefits to those
Sure.
that have space in SkyTech?
What we've often gotten from our community members has been, who else is here? What are they doing? And one of the things that we realize is that while everybody's doing what they're doing on a day-to-day basis, working on what they're doing, from time to time, what they really need, and they don't necessarily schedule this into their plan, is they need a place to go where they can talk to people at the same level who are facing the same challenges or who have faced those challenges in the past and just talk shop, right? But at their level. And as a solopreneur, as an entrepreneur, or a leader of a small business unit, when I say small, I mean in terms of number of people, you don't really have anybody to talk to sometimes or even to hold you accountable, right? So what Song does, and Song stands for the SkyTech Owners Networking Group, it brings you, it gives you a place where you can come. First of all, you meet other people, like-minded people. You then get to talk through, hey, here are the things that you get to share your successes. Hey, this is what we're up to. This is what we're doing. And the rest of the people get to act as your kind of like your sounding board,
Right.
like a mastermind, and tell you, hey, this is great. Have you thought about this? And some really magical things happen at that point. You also get a place to go and say, hey, these are real challenges that I'm facing. It could be something on the financial side, right? It could be something on the marketing side, the HR side,
Yeah.
the typical pain points we face. And you don't necessarily want to speak to a vendor at that point in time. You'd rather speak to somebody who's been through it.
Yeah. For sure.
And they can tell you maybe how to handle your vendor or where to find a vendor, or maybe suggest a vendor or service provider. So that happens. And obviously, the networking, you build relationships. And if there's anything, the biggest part of being in a community are those relationships. You got friends in the making here.
I know during COVID times, myself and a lot of my colleagues, those of us who have belonged to networking groups, whether it's in an executive suite offices like yourselves, or just, we've built these networks. I felt the sense of the people that had networks really felt a stronger health, in that they were not alone, that they had a support group to talk about their successes, as well as, hey, I'm having trouble with this, and people offering advice, suggestions, or even connections. And I think those that had those networks and do have those networks, so I encourage people to have networks during COVID times, are probably mentally and physically probably healthier than those that have been alone and feel isolated. It's very stressful. There's so much big decisions. You mentioned that the birth of your kids was a significant milestone in your life. Do you want to share what that means?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, between my wife and my kids, the biggest blessings I'm so grateful for. When the boys were born, the older one was born again at the beginning of my first startup, and the second was born just before the beginning of my second startup. And what that does is, first of all, there's this joy, right, of having this child around. And everybody knows when you're starting up a business, there's this stress, right? As much as there's opportunity, there's stress, no doubt. So having the baby around, having some place to go where this little guy doesn't care, how your day's gone. It's just happy to see you, right? And it's just standing there at the door. To have that, first of all, that amount of joy was great to have, because you need to have those moments, right? Like you talked about. But what it did for us, what it did for me specifically, was it motivated me. Is that when I looked at the kids, and like many parents, we try to make plans for them. We try to see what their futures are going to be like, and bring them opportunities, see them grow. And I thought to myself, you got to make this work. This is not just
A
about.
little pressure now, right?
It's so subtle, but it is such, for me, it's a tipping point. Again, I'm very grateful to the positive pressures I've had around me, and there is such a thing as pressure that's positive, and having the kids is one of them for me. We could have looked at it another way, obviously. That pressure can be, you can look down or you can look up, as they say. But having the young ones around, yeah, just give me something to fight for. And for team, my wife and I, we've said, hey, if it works, it works. If it doesn't. We're good. The two of us, we're good. That's really it. It just gave me something to say, hey, it's not for me. It's for them. And that sometimes is that last little bit that you need to get you over those humps, right? To stay cool, to stay focused in a moment.
A couple things I hear you say is the joy. And I think one of the things that I love about talking to you and brainstorming and thinking of new things to do is, when you talk, I hear that joy. I hear the joy in your voice, and I hear the calm. You have a calm presence. And when one sees your passion, your excitement, we also feel the calm. So those are the two things that I enjoy when I have conversations with you. And I know you talk about balance. And I think in the bio, you said, you love what you do and only do what you love. And that's kind of a simple motto. I know that when we're trying to book something for you, you clearly talk about, yes, I need to go to the golf. So this is the season. I need to do my golf, but yes, I can fit this in at this time. So you clearly are a business person who shares that balance of value with your clients, with your colleagues. Tell us more.
Yeah, I think balance is a big thing. And again, I think we would all agree. When we look at others, right? We learn from watching those ahead of us. And gosh, we've done it so many times. We look up at somebody, we look at and we say, hey, I want to be like this business person, or this lady or this man who have done some amazing things. But in that group, there is a select. And when I've watched them, I've realized that the ones that I've looked up to have not just been business people. For example, when I was asked once, I thought, like Mother Teresa, for example, comes to mind. I don't know, never thought about what her net worth would be, for example. Like you don't even think about that. But when you think about a successful human being, right? I thought about that. So back to balance. There is an ambition in all of us to really become the most of what we can be. And that's a fantastic thing. Where I think when we're working on something is that there's something to be said for being laser focused. If you hear this term, laser focused,
Yep.
and that means like blocking everything out and just simply thinking about this one thing. But we're human beings and we're not one dimensional, right? So if we take that laser focus and we don't balance it, we'll go so far. We are so driven, we're so strong, and we will go so hard in this one thing. We will leave everything else, family, health, right? Our spirits, whatever you want to call it. We'll just focus on this one thing. And most often, more often than not, we will get those things that we focus on, but at the cost of what?
Yeah.
And what are we getting? So when I think about that, and I've seen what people have given up, and they've given up their health usually, they've given up family, they've given up life. There's a saying, everybody dies, but not everybody lives. I've heard it so many times. I've seen it around me so many times. People who you love, an untimely death. This person had so much more to live for, so much more to do. And you think life is short. So as they say, success is not like some point in the future. It's the entire journey along the way.
Yeah.
And I made a commitment. I said, I'm going to enjoy it.
Yes.
You never know. You never know when it's going to end. And at least if it ends sooner than later, you look back and you'll say, I had a good time doing it. And that's the biggest thing.
I like what you're saying was, everybody dies, but does everybody live? And I remember somebody say, when people are dying or know they're dying, they think not of the joys that they had, but of the things they didn't do, the regrets. So I think it's the same philosophy is to live. I remember when I was younger, I always kept saying, well, if I die now, I'm actually happy with what I've done so far. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously I would want to do more if I lived another 20 years. I think I stopped doing that after 35, but I can remember at the age of 37, yeah, I made manager. I'm okay. I could die now. Like really, this is like kind of silly, but it is important, and I think one of the things I've enjoyed about you is that balance, but I have also enjoyed your creativity.
I mean, here's the thing that I see a lot of is that many of us actually, not just myself, I think we all have this amazing creativity in all of us. What happens is we'll say something and there's this fear that, well, what if somebody calls it a bad idea? Or what if somebody says, that's stupid, right? Like, that's ridiculous. And initially, I've been known for a long time of saying things that are dumb, like ridiculous. And the fear after a little while goes away and you think it now and you're open to it. But if we keep that mind open to, hey, somebody may call this a dumb idea, ask how many people, and you name the biggest names in the world out there that are creative, and they'll tell you how many times somebody looked at their idea and said, that's ridiculous. That's never going to work. There's a saying, I think, that the people who don't think it can be done should get out of the way of the people that are doing it. Right? So I say, oh, you know what? I'm just going to go. I'm going to do this. And if I go alone, it doesn't matter to me. So the idea kind of grew where what we're noticing, there's a fundamental difference. There are fundamental kind of challenges that we're facing as a society, locally and globally. And this is kind of like the play. So locally, in a developed place like North America, like Canada, where we are, the cost of living is going up at a rate that is, for many people, unsustainable. The drivers of these costs, when you compare them to the developing world, where the cost of living is very low, they're very, very obvious. What's driving them? So whatever the reasons are for what's driving the costs don't matter. What matters is that there are these people, these young people right now that are coming out of school that are finding it very, very difficult, very, very hard to find their balance, right? They're looking for a way to now go out there, but they can't go out there. They can't leave home because the cost of just stepping out of home is not sustainable. Living in the urban cities, the commute times from places that are affordable to live to those places have created, high stress careers, right? And then the cost of that becomes known over time when you see how many people start falling ill and requiring medication. It's not sustainable. So when I looked at that challenge, that's one sort of piece. For employers, right, who are trying to give these people opportunities, they're trying to create jobs, they're competing on a global level nowadays. Everything, it's a global village, as they say. So here you are with these high costs in developed parts of the world, and you're trying to compete with your business is trying to compete against another company that's based somewhere else, and the price difference in your costs and your operating costs just make your business unsustainable. Now you got a good idea, you got a good product, you got a good service, but you can't sustain because you're competing against costs that there's no way you can work with locally. So what some try to do is they try to ship some of their costs and some of their HR, especially HR, which is a big line item on the operating expense sort of side of things. They try to ship it somewhere else, and they try to get another group of people who are going to work for them at a lower cost to do this, maybe through call centers or through opening up branches. But now what they find is another challenge, and this is the next piece that we try to solve for, is that there's a huge cultural difference between your clientele now as a result of hiring people from outside of your culture to work with people inside of your local culture. And because of this disconnect, the client experience suffers. And you've all seen the time where you call, your phone company or somebody, and you get somebody from somewhere else, and they're doing their best. They're trying really hard, right?
Yep.
But they just can't deliver it, and you walk away with your expectations really not met. You find yourself frustrated. They maybe don't have access to the systems and all that kind of stuff, right? Because they're another company.
Yeah.
So what I thought of was a way to solve this by being able to do two things in one move. One was to give young people an opportunity to work for a local company, but to be able to have we call it La Vida, actually, is what it's called, the life, right? We settled on La Vida, and it's lavida.world. So we didn't make it a .com or a .ca. It's a .world. It's a global initiative. And the idea is really to give people the opportunity to work from wherever in the world they want to work. And the world is such a beautiful place. Many of us sort of say, that 2-week vacation that we take is just not enough. We want to really take in and live somewhere, but we couldn't because we got to get back to our jobs, right? Or to what we do on a daily basis. So what this allows you to do is allows you to really live somewhere else, have a job that's included, have everything paid for, and still, and this is the kicker, still have savings at the end of it, as opposed to a lifestyle here where you're just on this treadmill running really fast, not making enough to pay for your own, yearly expenses, and your debt just growing on top of the school loans that you had when you came out. So people are really they're really resonating with the idea, and so they're loving it. And when they're loving it, they're doing a better job now.
Yeah, when people are passionate about what they do, they're more engaged, and hey, they're paying me to do this, and I just love it.
Yeah, they're living by a beach. They're able to get great climate. And if you like it up in the mountains, we have a place up in the mountains. If you like it where there's snow, we have places where there's snow. You want beach. You can now start designing the life around what you want. And the work comes along with it. Now, for the employer, what's great is that because we're able to locate these people in a manner that makes their cost of living way more efficient, they're able to make their savings meet their savings goals while still being able to offer their time at a super advantageous price to the employer. And then the employer doesn't have to worry. And you're in HR, Hilda, you don't have to worry about the hiring. You don't have to worry about the performance reviews. You don't have to worry about the attrition costs, the retraining costs, right?
Because it's included. Yeah.
It's all included. You don't have to worry about, paying EI and paying your WSIB and all the things that have value on some level. But if you ask a business owner and operator, are the things that can kill your business. at the end of the day, it just makes it unsustainable.
I remember you coming up with this idea, and I'm thinking, wow. And it made me think about how it can be done. Because I think so often people will say, oh, you can't do that, right?
Yeah.
And I've learned myself is don't say it can't be done. Ask yourself, how can this be done? And it just opens up your brain to saying, well, it could be done if dot, 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 dot. And that's much more productive than fighting that, well, you can't do that because this. So I applauded that idea, and it's taking off then. Has it?
Yeah, actually, can I say on that point that you brought up?
Sure.
And we really have to say, I give a lot of thanks to the people that tell me it can't be done. But let's start by saying that. I love those people who say it can't be done, because what they really do for us is they check us and they tell us, here's what you need to think of. They're just saying it in a different way.
Yes, yeah.
So when they say, oh my, and I got a lot of that going, you got to balance out a lot of things here.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
got to worry about, what about health insurance?
yeah,
What
yeah.
about safety? What about this? What about that? What about loneliness? What about all these things? And we were just nodding our heads along the way going, yeah, good, got that covered. So we got ourselves a
Exactly.
checklist. Yeah, and so a lot of thanks to those people. How's it going? Yeah, it's actually never been better, because what we've done is we realize the things that we need, and we're constantly working at what we need. Technology has been a big piece of it to
Mhm.
connect
Yeah,
everybody.
sure.
Yeah, and we just recently came out with our technology finally rolled out. So it's ready. It's been tested. Now here's I don't want to even call it the silver lining. It's like the silver cloud with what's going on out there with the pandemic.
Mhm.
There was a time where if you talk to people, they would say, but our staff cannot work remotely. They have to be here in the office, and there has to be this, and there has to be this. The just mind was closed to that, because it was also driven by things like, well, we've paid for this space, we might as well have them here, right? Then COVID happens, and everyone's now working remotely,
Yes.
and they're realizing a couple of things. Obviously, that working remotely has huge challenges, which we're only starting to realize now, but we've been watching it for years, and we're aware of it. So, but it did open up the minds that said it can't be done to now saying it must be done, right? Because they had to go home.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the very same minds started walking this
Yeah.
path.
It's just like I said, how can it be done? And then you start problem solving that way. For
Yeah.
sure, for sure. Yeah,
So
there's
we're
a
doing great.
story of a large, Fortune 500 company that basically did all their research, wrote it in a statement to the staff. We have examined everything. We will continue working in the office. This was like January, February, right? And they had to turn around in March and, just kind of tear that little memo out the door
Well, let's
and
also
start all
say,
over.
and here's where SkyTech actually gets a lot of its clients from. Many of our clients who come to SkyTech have already been working from home for a long time.
Mhm.
They
Yeah.
just simply say, and you talked about balance earlier on, we actually encourage people, hey, if you can work from home, work from home. Keep your overhead low. But what we get back is saying, yes, we want to keep our overheads low, but we need to have that balance. We need to be around a professional environment. We don't want to just have our home address as our business address. We want that separation between, my work day and my home personal time. And as people are working home more and more nowadays, they're finding it very difficult to sometimes make that transition, right? From the kitchen to the living room or the office.
That 30-second walk is not enough
Not
transition.
enough. Yeah. So the mental reset is huge. But what we've now come to has been more people willing to understand that, oh my gosh, I can't. It doesn't really matter where my people are. What matters is that they are productive.
It's the outcome. It's really
Yeah,
the outcome.
and we focus on keeping them productive. The employer cares about productivity. The employee cares about their welfare, their happiness.
Mhm.
And it's not to say that the employer doesn't care about the employee's welfare. They quite often do. But there's just a conflict. There's a demand. Okay, the cost pressures are very high for the
Yeah.
employer,
Yeah.
and the employee's life, what's going on behind the scenes before they get to work and after they leave work, impact their mental state when they're at work. So we focus on making the whole life, back to beautiful, and that way when you are doing what you're doing, I always say, like, I'm a package deal. If you let me get my golf time, if you let me get my happy time, my me time, my play time, I'm a better me for when I come to work for you.
So this is the thing, is if business owners and companies could understand that if you look at the outcome, but give people a balance where they are happy, they'll be more productive because they're not stressed out about what they have to do at work. They will be more engaged because they know you care about their welfare. And that's where my philosophy is, that companies need to realize, if they want productivity, if they want the bottom line to be better, if you have an organization that is about creating work culture, about understanding that person as a human being, creating trust with them, they'll feel engaged. They'll feel less stressed than a manager that pressures them for output, because then they become distracted, they become less productive, and they're stressed out. So you are the emulation of what all employees should be and all employers should be. This work-life balance, because in the end, it will yield a better product. And statistics will show that those organizations that are people focused actually have a better ROI, better productivity than those that are just focused only on the bottom line and not a balance of bottom line and people. Because it's that 1 + 1 = 3. That's what you're going to get if you have a more people-centric organization. We've talked about a lot of your successes, and there have been struggles. You mentioned the times I have been defrauded. Now, that's just not once.
I think all of us have been through moments where expectations were not met. I think Bill Gates had a great speech. Many people circulated for a while about a speech he gave at at a graduation ceremony. It's a very famous speech talking to people about, hey, look, if you think the world is fair, and remember, fairness is something that we have by our own definition, by our own standards. And I think that's the first place to start, is to understand that we have our standard, and not everybody necessarily shares that same standard, whether it's above ours or below ours. So yeah, I mean, to kind of get into a bit more detail, here's the bottom line, is you get taken. I got taken. I tell this story a lot. Our phone system, who knew our phone system would get hacked? And they ran up a bill, a long distance bill on us, back in the day when there was such a thing as long distance, calling for like $35,000. So we had a $35,000 long distance bill. And anybody who we counted on at that moment kind of walked away. So we went to our insurance company and they said, you got to prove it was a crime or whatever. And I said, well, we didn't make the call, so there you go. And I wasn't as seasoned as a business person now. I didn't know how to handle lawyers, how to handle these situations. So I simply shrugged and said, okay, well, insurance said they won't cover it. And I just walked away. Some tell me that I had a fair claim, but anyway, so I keep going. I went to a lawyer and said, can you help me deal with this? And the lawyer said, yeah, I'll help you deal with this. We'll help you deal with it. It was a very well-known firm. And they said, here's what we'll do for you, SkyTech. Your problem right now is a $35,000 problem. So you pay us $10,000. We'll get the other side to settle for $10,000. And instead of having a $35,000 problem, you now have a $20,000 problem. So we'll reduce the problem. And I thought, again, okay, you must know what you're doing. So we go forward, and it takes them 2 years of going back and forth with the telephone company, who did not budge 1 inch, saying, hey, you owe us this money. You're going to pay us this money. You know what my lawyer fees, my legal fees came to after 2 years? It's an ironic number. 35,000 is what my legal fees came to in all the back and forth.
Yeah, yeah.
And at the end of it, the telephone company said, if you don't settle now, we're going to go further. And then the legal costs could really balloon. So I ended up settling for $35,000 after paying another $35,000 in legal fees. And it just doubled the problem in the effort to solve it. Where's the good news in all this? It's not good news. It's great news. What happened is my monthly telephone bills, I looked at and I thought, well, I need to change my system just to make it more secure. But by changing the system and making the adjustments that we made, we cut down our monthly phone calls by 75%. When I look at how much we lost in this experience of the $75,000 to $70,000 cost of the lesson, And the savings that we've had because of the new systems that we've developed that have saved us on the operating side, this is going back 10 years, we've made back probably tenfold
Yeah.
what it costed us.
But it's
So
hard to see that at the time, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
For sure.
That's why when these moments come along, it's because there was a vulnerability. And we need to own that. We need to take ownership of that. That's the win-lose moment right there. When you forget about business, when you're in a game of, say, soccer or whatever you're playing, and it came down to the last buzzer beater, and there was a lucky bounce, something like that, and the other side says, "Oh, they got lucky." And I look at it, I always say, "What are you talking about? Like, it was all the moments that led up to that moment that you allowed to happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have control."
I think it's about taking ownership, as a business owner or even as a manager or a senior executive, you need to identify, take ownership, and then move on. And move on means understand what the damages is, correct the damage, and try to make an improvement and move on from it. Don't allow that to be a negative kind of albatross that holds you back from the next time something doesn't go right. You learn from your mistakes, as you say, and then you kind of bulletproof yourself for the next time that happens in a different way. And then you become more seasoned. As you say, the first time you deal with lawyers, the next time you're going to know a little bit more and you'll be more seasoned. So I always say, take everything as an opportunity, whether it's a positive or a negative, but do try to look at it so it doesn't weigh you down in a negative kind of fashion, right?
Yeah, I think you nailed it, Hilda. That state of mind that we allow ourselves, and that our state of mind we are so much in control of our state of mind that, in that moment, we can choose to be stressed and to cry over it and find if we need to have that moment, we have our moment, right? I have that moment all the time, and that's why I thank my kickboxing trainer.
How's that bag? Is
I
that bag
know,
still
and
sturdy?
you gotta have the release.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we're human beings, so we go, we you get to have a good cry, as they say, and then get up. And I heard someone once say to me, this mentor of mine, she said, "You put your hair in a bun," or something like that, and you get up and you go. And there's really no other way. You can either be stationary there and just, but being stationary really doesn't get you, out of it.
Yeah.
You got to move, and there's a risk. We're hurt, but if we don't move, then that's the real loss right there, the quit. Sometimes you don't have an option, and like I said, maybe it was because the kids were there at the time. I had no choice. This was it. There was no other opportunity. I could not start again. I had too much invested already. Like we've all been there, and you can shrug. Literally you shrug it off and go, "Okay, good one, you got me." And you can look at it literally that way, but there's always another round, and then you just go.
I love that you're a connector and you're always helping others. When you meet somebody, you want to connect. Now, what I realized in this particular business now is that I've been blessed to be connected by so many people who really share my similar values, of caring for people, of connecting, of being honest, and to enjoy working with those kinds of people who are positive and innovative and creative and are action oriented. These are some of the things that just keep me going and energetic. And I just love how suddenly I realized I have a tribe of people that I trust and I want to work with because they share the same values. And I appreciate that with you.
Some people call it the law of attraction, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Some people say, birds of the same feather, whichever way you sort of say it. If you've been around long enough, that it's not always rosy. And there are moments when I look back and I thought, why is it, what am I doing wrong? There's this reflection moment. And from that comes a sense of awareness. And this was a big part of that, is that, wait a second, I actually looked at how I wanted to be. And I knew that I wasn't there yet. And I thought, what's holding me back from being there? And someone once said to me, your net worth is your net worth. I looked at really who was I surrounding myself with.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized, as fortunate as we all are to have a lot of the right elements around us, and this kind of happens, it can happen pretty organically, but we also have to be aware that sometimes it can creep in that some of the elements that are not good for us are around us. It could be a combination of things, but people have a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
And you've probably done this as well, Hilda. I know many successful people who either speak about this very openly or secretly, but they'll say, "Hey, you know what? I had to shed some part of it. You know, whether it was things that I was thinking or people that I was around or allowing myself to be around." So it hasn't always been that way. Actually, it's been sometimes where, yeah, what am I doing around this type of mentality?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and it requires definitely a lot of reflecting, and it does require a sense of awareness. Going, hey, I'm around this, and that's creeping in on my thought. It's creeping in on my state of mind, my emotional state, and it was a very deliberate move on my side. And when we make these deliberate moves, they're very uncomfortable because we're going to have to say no to some people, and I started doing that. And slowly, I said, this is the only type of person that I'm going to want to be around. And more and more people here at SkyTech who I talk to as well, people like yourself, who I hold very near and dear, all say the same things. They said, yeah, we just won't have that type of element around us, whether it's a person or not, animate or inanimate. And keep it positive. And that really then starts fueling us.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So
I mean, I'm enjoying this stage of my business because I am surrounding myself with positive energy and positive people, and it's just made it a wonderful journey. But the odd time when it creeps back in, like I thought, where is that? And I thought, oh right, that used to be more a steady diet in my earlier days, and I'm so glad I don't have to deal with that anymore. I forget.
Yeah. Oh, I think it's getting to such a point now. So I would say like hypersensitive to it. And that's why I say I'll only do what I love to do. If there's a moment somebody walks into my energy field, as we sometimes call it, right? I don't even have to interact with them directly, but there's this feeling. And I'll simply say, yeah, there's something in the energy field just ain't right. And so at SkyTech here, we do that really a lot. In fact, we have a little saying. We say we judge you by your smile. So when somebody walks in who maybe a prospective client or whatever, and if they don't smile, if their smile isn't like your smile, Hilda, or
Yeah.
if their smile is not there, we realize that they're going to kill our vibe. And
It's
no
about
matter,
fit.
I use the analogy of oil and water. Your environment is like this container, right?
Mhm.
And what are you going to fill it with, right? And the two, oil and water, just don't mix,
Yeah.
right? So what do you want inside of your container? And some will say, yeah, I only want this. I want the most of this. I want to have a great environment that's very positive. And so if somebody comes along, or there's an energy, or it's like you said, if it's something that we're eating or a habit, it doesn't necessarily just have to be external to us. It could be very internal to us.
Yeah. Yeah.
We just go through it step by step and just start, weeding it out, and then all of a sudden, it's definitely a process. And those weeds, like on your lawn, they fight really hard to stay on your lawn. They do, right? These weeds, and you got to really plug it out.
You have to pluck it out. I get it.
Yeah, it's really, it's sometimes uncomfortable, but you do it, and it's a beautiful thing in the end. Yeah, I don't think it happens accidentally. To address your question, I don't think it happens accidentally. I think it has to happen with a sense of awareness.
Yeah.
Because if you just kind of just leave it like the weeds on your lawn, eventually they creep back in. So there has to be attention to that. I think that's a huge point, Hilda, that you brought up.
Yeah, and thanks for that analogy. What I tell business owners is that if you're a business owner, you're starting your company, building your company, you get to choose. You get to choose where you have your office. You get to choose the people you hire. You get to choose the culture. And I say to people, if you just let the culture evolve without having a clear understanding of what you want that work culture to be, how people should behave, a sense of camaraderie or not. It will grow organically without you, and it may not be what you want. So have a clear understanding of what do you want this business you own to be like? Not just financially, but what are the people going to be like? Who are you going to hire? What kind of culture? What kind of sense of value do you want to instill in your people? You can tell I'm very passionate about that. But that's the point, is it's your control. So if it gets, not the way you want it, that's because you didn't make it the way you want it. So lesson learned,
So
define what you want and help make that happen.
if you have time for an analogy, like you just said, what kind of business do you want? I go back up, I rewind further back. I ask what kind of life, and then the business. And I always believe life first, then business. As much as I love business. I love talking business. It's life, business in that order. And I say, what kind of life do you want? Then what kind of business feeds that kind of life or supports that kind of lifestyle? And like you said, if it's just about the money, then there's your answer. If it's more to it than that, then there's another answer. And literally, that's how you can go about designing your business. Today, when I sit down with people, talk about their business plans, and talk about what kind of business they want to have, it's amazing. If you look at all the books of business planning and development, not one really covers the fact that you are the most important part of the business when you're starting up your business. And you are a life. You are a person. You are not a business. Right?
Yeah.
So taking care of yourself is not one part of any business plan. And I'm just amazed because you are the biggest asset to your company.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you have that as part of your plan inside of your business plan? That I must do something inside my company that feels good, that makes me better as a person, right? As a human being, as a person to help my community, right? All of those things. So we mandate that inside of our business plan. We must have a certain community service element in terms of what we do.
Exactly. Yes.
We must. Otherwise, we're not being true to the life that we want to have, the life we want to have, or the people that we want to be.
And to add to that sense of community, it is about giving. And I think that's how you and I have those shared values. We want to give back, right? And to me, community is not just your geographical community. So to belong to wherever your office location or your home location, being part of that community, but there's other communities. So in my case, it's my profession is human resources. So I give back to my human resources community, and I give back to my industry, right? So that in this case, it's human resources. But to think about giving back is not just geographical. It's not just about the family and how the family interacts with that community. It's also profession. So community is many, many aspects in that community.
Are you ready for the paradigm? Here we go. Are you ready?
Go for it.
So in the business plan, you're going to love this, Hilda. There's a portion of the we're talking about. So in a portion of business plan, there's something called promotion, right? And I remember a few years ago, I hired an intern to help us rewrite our business plan. And when it came to promotion, and this is off your topic of giving and connecting and community, and she asked me, she said, so what do you do for promotion? And this just came out, and I said, I don't worry about promotion. I focus on purpose. Okay? And I said, if you focus on purpose, promotion takes care of itself. So you say, hey, my purpose is I want to be a contributing member of my community, and not just as an individual, as a business. And then you go out there and you fulfill that purpose. And what's amazing is that if the purpose is aligned with what's good for everybody, and you fulfill that purpose, then all of a sudden your surrounding starts becoming aware of your contribution. And in turn feeds back to your purpose. It's a very natural way to achieve promotion, but in a very, very positive, not self-centered, sort of way where there are way more people winning in one move than just yourself.
Yes, it's almost being authentic, and to find that passion and to give back, and in itself it will be rewarded for sure.
Yeah, everyone's kind of spoken to that. But the clear thing is, you also hit a great point, just being genuine, being authentic, that we're not doing that community side of things for the sake of promotion. It's amazing how many times you see that, right? And you
Yeah,
kind
I
of go,
know,
look
I
at that,
know.
hey, I'll give you a chance to have your 10 seconds of glory, your 10 seconds of fame. It's like, don't worry about that. Let's just take care after the community. And then the rest of it kind of happens. And it's a beautiful thing.
You've touched upon so many different aspects of your journey and some of the lessons you learned along the way. And I think words of wisdom that I think will resonate with our listeners. And if they can find gems from what you said to help them with their journey and their philosophy, yeah, I believe in that. I should live that more. I'm hoping that this has awakened some of our listeners to a way of doing business that maybe they hadn't thought about, but maybe it can be something that they feel really good about doing. So I'm hoping that you and I have opened up a new way of thinking for some people that will help do good for other businesses and other people in the world. So I'd like to thank you for coming on. How do people get a hold of you?
Oh, just look us up. We go by the SkyTech Success Centers is really what we're going with our new brand now. You just call us, look us up online. Hilda, call Hilda and ask Hilda how to find us.
We had Mohammed on. How do I get a hold of him?
Obviously, when you're doing this, we can connect. Your producers can maybe put our say the website or the phone number on there, but yeah, we're SkyTech, and we're a community, and we say of successful businesses and owners and professionals. So if for no other reason, we don't have to do anything more than just connect and be around each other, really that's enough for us. So we're just looking to grow. And if you're looking to grow beside somebody or to have somebody share and contribute to your success, that's what we're all about.
Well, thank you very much for your insights and for taking the time to come and join me in revving up your potential.
Thank you, Hilda. And may I say, with what you're doing, and you can use this testimonial any way you want.
Thank you.
For you, Hilda.
In advance,
Uh,
thank you.
yeah, no, really, Hilda. And I was going to say this earlier on, but I wanted to make sure that we didn't end without saying this. Is that here you are, Hilda, with Rev Up and with what you're doing over at Rev Up, being instrumental in helping people, and you take an element of the business operation, the HR side of things, which is so complex, which is so difficult, and all of your years of experience and your expertise and your achievements, you're putting that all together, and you're bringing a sense of calm. You're bringing a sense of hopefulness, of inspiration to people. I just hope you keep going with it, and I wish you a ton of success. You've already been very successful, but for all the people that are lucky enough to be able to work with Hilda Gann, you should be very grateful. You have an amazing person. So thank you, Hilda, and let's keep working together. There's a lot needed out there right now to be done.
For sure. Wow. You just, thank you.
If you ever need somebody to introduce you, call me. I
For
will.
sure. For
I
sure.
will be your agent of Quan.
I, I do enjoy working with you. I'm looking forward to Blind Spot, which helps entrepreneurs grow, and that sense of philanthropy that you created Blind Spot with small business centers in Markham and Richmond Hill, and you didn't see it as a monetizing thing. You saw it to help startups and entrepreneurs, and this is the kind of person that you are. So thank you for that wonderful testimonial. We definitely need to use that somewhere, but thank you for really sharing some wisdom that I think will resonate with people, either validating what they're doing or making them see the value in being, caring and giving, because it will reward them in return, and finding out who they are and loving the passionate journey they'll take with that.
I'll finish on this note. People out there are amazing people. We are all full of amazing ideas. We just have to have enough faith in ourselves to just let it happen. Just whatever we're thinking, whatever we're about to do, just do it.
And I will leave on that note and say thank you. Thank you very
All
much.
the best, Hilda. All the best,
Thank
Hilda.
you. Great
Thank you.
having
Bye.
you.
That are not going to help us actualize to a higher sort of level. Hang on one second now.
Nice
Can you
music.
hear that? Can you hear that? Okay, we're going to cut this part out.
Yeah,
But
he'll cut this
my
part
phone
out.
is actually being used to prop up my laptop.
No worries. You can't touch it. Yeah, you can try to retrace your steps so he has a clean. He'll splice and dice. He'll
Okay,
splice
good.
and dice.
Good. This is going to be one of those blooper moments. So, okay, all right.